Hey everybody, it's Mama Soul Doc, Dr. Maya Alapin. I am not a medical doctor or a mental health care practitioner. I'm making this video today so that you know what to expect from level 1 training. So, first of all, the next training is the last weekend of this month, March 28th to 30th. I train for about 4 or 5 hours a day. Sometimes it's a little bit longer, but you can come and go as you please. Everything is recorded, so there's nothing to worry about. You're not going to miss anything if you're not there. It's nice to come live because then we have the live demos, of course, that you can participate in, but it's not required. So, moreover, with your payment, you get access not only to all the recordings from past trainings, but also to a ticket to any live training that I hold. So not only this one, but any future one. So the payment covers all of the recordings as well as all of the live training opportunities. So that's what's included. First thing I want to talk about is why am I teaching this course to begin with? So bottom line is most of the time when you train in a hypnosis course, you learn something like a specific technique or a script or some way to prepare. And it's very much a kind of mechanical education. So there are steps to follow and things to do, binders, papers, all kinds of things to kind of keep track of, kind of traditional educational model. So the problem with that I'm solving with this training that I'm doing, and I'll explain more as I go through this video, the problem with that is that model of training in a method is really oriented towards getting rid of symptoms. So it's kind of like developing a coping mechanism. So there's nothing wrong with that. There's a lot of good things to be said about that. Sometimes I think it's very helpful and useful. But overall, the issue is when we're only treating symptoms, we end up not necessarily solving the problem permanently. So you can tell someone in hypnosis, give them an affirmation like, you're only breathing fresh air now. You're, running with your kids as a way to get them to stop smoking, for example. But though that might work for some period of time, it's very questionable if it's going to be a permanent change. So, what I'm doing with the conversational method is not solving symptoms, not addressing coping mechanisms, but going for a different approach. It's called a hypnotic interview. And the reason I'm doing the interview is because I'm really curious about the client's perception and um, interpretation of their own problem. First, of course, they're going to give a conscious interpretation of it. But as the interview goes on, and that's what the conversational method is so cool at doing, as the conversation goes on, we start to bypass the conscious mind, bypass the critical factor, and go into the subconscious. So that's where the problem really exists, not the symptoms of the problem, but the real reason a person has a problem. So, like, what's the difference between the symptoms and the cause? Well, a lot of people smoke, but do they all smoke for the same reason? No, of course not. Some people smoke because their parents did. Some people smoke because they tried it when they were 15 and never stopped. Some people do it, there's millions of reasons. So the question for each individual is not how do I address the symptom of smoking, but what do I know about the reason I smoke? Because that's what will stop me from picking it up again in the future. If we don't get to the basic reason why a person has a certain behavior, what's to stop them from transferring the symptom to another problem? So, like, you have somebody come in and they stop smoking, but next thing you know, for all we know, they start overeating, or they start vaping, or they start being addicted to whatever else, porn or something. So, until that reason a person does something is addressed, we really can't be sure that it's not going to recur. The problem's not going to recur. So I'm using this hypnotic interview, which is the conversational method, to not get stuck in symptoms, not get stuck in client interpretations, but actually move into solving problems. How do I do this is not what it says in number 2, not by coming up with my own suggestions or using fancy language patterns or confusing the client, because all of that is too hard to remember and it's not proven to work either. So we're going to use the interview instead and bypass all of those traditional techniques and approaches. A lot of what's done traditionally too, is we assign homework, we assign audios. Again, now we're caught in symptom solving. So too much to organize, lots of that the clients don't even use that stuff anyway. It's too repetitive, it's too exhausting. It repeats this familiar model we have from childhood of you have to go and do more homework, you have to, practice your presentation. I mean, of course, I've done tons of that in my higher education. There's nothing wrong with it, but does it actually get to the root of people's problems and solve them? Probably not. So my technique does not have you assigning homework or doing endless audios either. Traditional model also requires us to do multiple sessions, multiple hours, packages, programs, and so this sets the client up for a long time in their transformation process. It is not exactly logical, in my opinion, because if we tell someone it's going to take this amount of time, then we're setting them up for that length of experience. That is not underwritten by any facts. There's no reason to say this problem takes this long and this problem takes that long. We just don't know. So there's no need to ascribe to that multiple session model when we're using the conversational method, because very often conversation gets to the root of the problem in the first or second session. It really rarely takes me any more than that. So why would we go with this idea that it's going to take a very long time and take a lot of hours if, in fact, the hypnotic interview has proven time and time again that it doesn't have to be that way? Rapport, pre-talk, suggestibility test, deepeners, relaxation, all of those are the traditional approach, and they just take a lot of time investment from you as a practitioner. I'm not saying there's something wrong with that. I'm just saying it's not required. And if there is a better way, which I think there is, that's why I'm teaching the course, then we can learn how to basically condense or multitask in a way all the traditional methods and all the traditional steps into something faster and more effective, which is this hypnotic interview. So we don't need to learn, as you probably already have in all the trainings you've done so far, how to create this rapport, how to do this pre-talk, how to do suggestibility tests. You're not going to learn that in this course. You're not going to learn how to read scripts in this course. You're not going to learn how to predict what affirmations the client needs to hear. This is all too much time, too much investment. We're going to use the client's subconscious directly and get there in a much more immediate and efficient way because, of course, the client knows everything about themselves and we know very little. So there's no reason why I should be the one to tell somebody how to relax or how to think when they're more than capable of doing that themselves using the power of their own subconscious mind. Did you all know how strong the subconscious mind is? I mean, it's said to be like as powerful as is needed to run 300 million hours of continuous television. So this is a supercomputer. And if we can just access the supercomputer, we do not need to tell clients what to do or force them or drag them into their own solutions. Finally, number 6, no need to tell people what is hypnosis, how does it work, all of this stuff. It's just like going to the dentist. The dentist doesn't need to tell you every reason and detail as to why they're doing a certain procedure. They need to inform you of what's possible and give you the necessary information so you can make an educated decision. But we don't need to spend all of our time with our clients telling them what hypnosis is or explaining to them what the process entails, because that's not what they're there for. They're there for a solution. They're there for the problem to be solved. So this course is going to show you that those traditional approaches, wonderful and important as they are not required and are not necessary for the transformations that I'm doing in my clinic. So What I'm going to teach in the course is something very funny, which is to ignore creating hypnosis, to ignore creating trance, to ignore problem solving for people. Why is that? The reason is because the conversational method, by implication, is hypnotic. The way the conversation proceeds creates what is called a fractionation, which is a constant return to the subconscious mind. So when we can pile that fractionation and when we can really build on it, the client becomes very easily hypnotized without me forcing them or without me having to relax them. Now, why would that matter? Well, bottom line is relaxation and transformation are not the same thing. You don't need to be in a trance, so to speak, the traditional kind with your eyes closed and, somebody telling you go deeper, you're feeling very relaxed, all of that stuff. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but you don't need that in order to really undo a problem. So the way I'm proceeding is undoing these knots in a person's subconscious allows them to enter in on a trance state spontaneously without me dragging them. And that's why my approach is so effective because I am not ever implying to somebody or forcing somebody or dragging somebody into hypnosis. And I love that because many people are not easily hypnotized, and many people, even if they are in hypnosis, are not necessarily doing something useful in there, so to speak. So you can tell somebody, close your eyes, 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, you're a non-smoker. For all I know, what they're thinking is, go F yourself, or I don't like this, or it's too hot in here, or whatever. So I don't depend on that. I don't depend on telling people how to create the hypnosis. They will do it spontaneously once we get there. As I said a few minutes ago, people don't have problems for the same reasons. One person's anxiety is not somebody else's anxiety. One person's alcoholism is not another person's. Everybody has their own reason why they are doing whatever habitual thing they're doing. So I don't guess about that. I don't do any guessing because when I start guessing, I am putting the client at a disadvantage. So that's what I'm teaching in the course is how to just get away from guessing, get away from scripting, get away from thinking you know how to solve somebody's problem because as you know, you don't. Moreover, what happens when somebody shows up and says, "Oh, the smoking's not that important to me anymore. Now I want to do weight loss instead." And you've spent all of this time preparing a stop smoking script. That's very irritating and also puts you in a kind of uncomfortable position because now you have to do something you're not prepared for. So, using the conversational method, we never have to worry about did I prepare the right thing? Because what's going to happen instead is the interview, the hypnotic interview, which I'm going to teach you in day 1 of the training, is going to take care of that for you. So, essentially, love it though I do, as I do. And I'm not meaning to hurt anybody's feelings or offend anybody because there's lots of great hypnosis available. But in my personal view, from my experience with clients, the traditional model is just not right. It's wrong. The idea that we have to sell hypnosis or sell therapy or sell coaching is um, basically misled because at the end of the day, what the clients are interested in and interested in acquiring from us is just the solution to their problem. They're just looking for results. So we have this idea as traditional hypnotists that we have to sell more time, more hypnotic processes, more homework, more products, more value. But the truth is that none of that is what creates transformation. So longer healings and more techniques are thought to create value, but is that really true? Well, you can read all of my reviews on Google and on the website. And as you can see, many, many, many people have had very quick transformations. And that's what they liked about it, that they didn't have to earn it or deserve it or wait for it or whatever. So it is not true that more visits and more sessions create value. And that's what I'm going to teach you in the course is we do not need to spend all of this time creating reasons to have sessions in order to make more money. That doesn't make any sense. What makes sense is letting the client find their results, find their solution, and doing that as quickly as we can. So that's the point of view of my course, is to just create that impetus and momentum towards transformation in the moment of the session, not by creating an infinite commitment or a very long-standing commitment to the client. So this is basically the timeline that I'm going to be teaching you, is how to investigate problems, how to undo knots, how to identify unconscious moments so that you really know when the conversation is going in a good direction. Then we're going to introduce some more traditional ideas like giving process instructions, introducing perhaps metaphor or some kind of insights from the point of view of the hypnotist. That's when the knots really get undone, so to speak. That's when the problems really start to undo themselves. And once we see that the knots are undone, we can test. We can test the clients, just like, your mechanic tests your car before he gives it back to you or she gives it back to you. We have to test the results of our hypnotic interview. So we go back to the beginning and check, and then we see what remains for this client to solve. So then we repeat the process: more investigation, more curiosity, more interview, test again. And then eventually all the knots are undone. We're able to demarcate the session and give tasking instructions. So basically, in a nutshell, I'm going to teach you all those steps in the first 2 days of the training so that you really get a strong sense of how to run a session like immediately. Inside of each module, I'm going to just develop for you each of these parts of the timeline so that you really have a strong intuition about where you are inside of the conversation at any time. So why do I care so much about creating this fast transformation? Why is it so important to focus on speed? Well, the reason is because the more time we spend with each client, the longer their problem stretches out. The client is coming to solve a problem like an addiction or a depression or whatever. What they're here for, what they're with you for, is to get out of that problem ASAP, immediately. Speed is important for client satisfaction. That's the answer. Clients love the idea that they can come and sit with you or see you on Zoom and leave with relief immediately. So speed is important for the client to be truly heard and satisfied. I'm not saying everybody's going to transform in one session, by the way. I'm saying when my eye is on the prize, which is the result of the session, my service is oriented towards the client in the best way possible. Reciprocally, the less time I spend with each person, obviously, the more energy I can give to each new client and to each session. So my focus and my energy level is at its peak when I myself, as the hypnotist, am not overwhelmed with 6, 8, 12 session packages, because then I really can't focus on each person. So speed is important to the client for the reason they're coming to you, but it's also important to you as the practitioner, because there is absolutely no way to have a sustainable, long-standing practice with huge numbers of sessions per clients. Moreover, we just don't need it. So if you don't need it, you don't need it. The dentist isn't going to have you come back 5 times if all they need is to see you once or twice. So the method works as it is, and it's important for both parties to get through this process in an efficient way, not in a rushed way, but in an efficient way. So speed is important for the clients as well as for the hypnotist. Think about this. Now we're talking about why speed is important from the point of view of the practitioner. In an ordinary situation, here's all the stuff that you do that takes up time. Prep the session, write the scripts, create rapport, use suggestibility tests, check them again, deepeners, all kinds of homework, audios. All of this creates more and more and more time per client. In ACH, in conversational hypnosis, advanced conversational hypnosis, all of this becomes condensed into the interview. We don't need to do a trance and an induction and a deepening and then undo knots and then assign homework. We don't need to do all of that stuff because we're basically doing like a time compression. I kind of think about it as AI, not in terms of digital technology, but just in terms of AI is interested in condensing information and making things go faster. So it's like recreating the wheel from a more speedy perspective. So this is like an AI form of hypnosis because it allows the client to move quickly out of the problem, and it allows you to not have to do these discrete pieces, which are kind of cumbersome and get boring after a while. So instead, you get to have a very fresh experience with each client from a very energized perspective because you're not exhausted. And you are able to use all of these traditional methods and models, but in a very interesting new configuration, which is the hypnotic interview, which is just much, much faster and more effective. I already said this, I think, somewhere in the last few minutes that, or maybe I haven't, the dentist example. If you have a tooth that hurts and you need, let's say, a crown on it, and the price is, let's say, $2,500 for 20 minutes, is it worth it? Well, it depends on what other people are doing. If another dentist says it's 5 or 6 visits for $1,000, which would you pick? Would you go with the cheaper or the faster? Of course, you would go with faster because, for one thing, it's less chaos in your life, less time off of work, and all of that. But also, your tooth feels better as quickly as possible. You don't have to go back and back and back and back. So there's absolutely no reason why we need to see people continuously or many, many times in a row if the problem goes away in the initial visit. So, as with any professional, what we're aiming for is accuracy, not time spent. So that's what I'm going to teach you in this course is how to conduct this interview, how to use this so-called AI conversational hypnosis so that you can get results fast. You can use the technique right away. I do live demos during the course so that you can feel the hypnosis, you can practice your skill, you can feel it as a client. Whatever you want to volunteer for is a great investment because the more you can sense this approach, the less you need to depend on all of those conventional techniques. So my course is not going to be traditional. You're not going to leave with a certificate or a binder or any fancy stuff. But what you're going to leave with is this innate ability to sit with a client immediately and hypnotize them without using traditional hypnotic processes. So, long story short is the conversational method does not rely on script reading, regurgitation, affirmation, suggestion, homework audios, or any of those things. It's really a very different approach altogether that, of course, still goes back to hypnosis because the effect of conducting the conversational interview process is hypnotic. So I create trance by using conversational hypnosis, not by doing one discrete thing after another as we do based on our traditional training. So what's included in the course is not only a ticket to the live event, which is great to come to so you can practice live. If you can't come to this live event, you can, come to any live event. It's all included in the fee. You don't have to pay again and again and again. So anytime you're ready to join, you can join. You can come to the next event or you can wait for a future event. The tickets are all included. Also included is the whole recorded corpus. So everything I've recorded so far, which is over 100 hours of training. So you can just watch them at your own pace. They're all housed in Kajabi, which is a nice online platform where you can basically watch, hold your place, come back to it. You can watch a little here and there. You can watch the whole thing straight through, whatever you prefer. I also have a great community. So we have a Facebook group where you can ask questions and meet other people to practice with. So we have all kinds of support. And lastly, I have a monthly practice group where you can come and practice live. So we talk about business in there, we talk about troubleshooting, and you get to practice the actual skill that you learn during the training. So that's all offered for the one price, $997 US dollars. Everything's included. You can buy it anytime you want and still have access to any future live training. Thanks for listening. Of course, if you have any questions about the training or anything I've said in this video or any of these videos, you can send me a message or comment, and I will do my best to get back to you. I also am happy to meet with you for a free 15-minute call so you can ask questions about the training if that helps. So I look forward to seeing you in the course. Thanks for listening. This is Dr. Maya Alapin, Mama Soul Doc.